stop cultural genocide in Tibet, in East Turkestan, and in southern Mongolia, and stop Chinese colonialism in these three countries, and lastly, stop the crimes against humanity. These three special messages that we are here today bringing with us is not something that does not carry any messages. This, how lofty the words may sound, but for us, the people of East Turkestan, southern Mongolia, and in Tibet, the people in these countries experience the result of such a policy of cultural genocide, crimes against humanity by the Chinese government. We are here today, especially in conjunction with the United Nations publication of a far-reaching report on the human rights situation in East Turkestan. We do welcome this report and the findings, and especially the recommendations by the United Nations Human Rights Council to the Chinese government. It is two days ago, but this report shocked the world of governments, politicians, human rights organizations, but just simple individuals, civil societies, when they saw the United Nations Human Rights Council through its High Commissioner for Human Rights, Ms. Michelle Bachelet, that there is all the indications that in East Turkestan, the Chinese government may have committed crimes against humanity. This is what's happening in East Turkestan. But the people of southern Mongolia, which was occupied, illegally occupied by China as early as in 1919, in Tibet, 1950. Since then, 60, 70 years ago, the people of these two countries have been facing and continues to face what the United Nations High Commissioner, United Nations Human Rights Council, 193 members consisting, including the People's Republic of China, and we believe it's more than high time that the international organizations, United Nations, especially United Nations, especially, it's high time that it really came out with such a groundbreaking report. I know our friends in East Turkestan, many of them feel disappointed with this report. Why disappointed? Because it's been so many years since the first report came to the world, what's happening in East Turkestan, and since the German researcher Adrian Zenz brought this unprecedented report on the situation in Turkestan. But it is never late, then never. It's never late. It is high time. The most important is that the Chinese government come to light, come to sense, to implement the recommendations of this report. The report consists of 48 pages, minorly detail the situation of torture, forced sterilization, in working labor camps, how Uyghur millions are forced to detain arbitrarily, and what does Chinese government do? Where it is best at is to have 131 pages report to counter these United Nations 48 pages report with all its lies and propaganda, and is protecting and resisting and defending its government more repressive policy in Turkestan, in Tibet, and in southern Mongolia. What is there for the international community to really deal with China? We all must find a way, very creative way, to really deal with China and to say that we are no longer in 1949, when the Mao came into power and thought that the world is under his thumb. Where in 2022, Chinese government claiming to be one of the superpowers in the world. How are we, international community, are going to really deal with China and our own in the Western democratic countries? How do we deal with a country like China, where millions of peoples, South Mongolia, East Turkestan, in Tibet, are still under its colonialism? It is almost 60 years ago the United Nations started its decolonization process. And we all felt that decolonization process started, and now that most of the former colonies are no longer exist, and we do not have such a colonized colonies in the world, then the international community has mistaken. But China is now holding one of the largest colonies in the world. Uyghurs, how many millions? South Mongolian people, how many millions? Tibetan people, a country as large as all Western Europe. The largest colony in the world is still existing under the PRC. We have to recognize this. Is it something human imagination that cannot ignore such a grave human rights violations in such a huge countries under China's occupation? We cannot continue to accept this, because it may not be too long before the Chinese government, we already know, through various influential policies. A concrete example is Belt and Road, the Chinese government. How much it has brought destruction and suffering also to the other countries that is really trying to extend its influence. And I think it's high time for the international community, for the government, to really start not taking for granted all these misgivings, all this misinformation, the propaganda that China is really spreading about the situation in these three countries. These three countries have common, under Chinese illegal occupation, economic marginalization, resource exploitation, and continued sinicization, and by that committing cultural genocide in these three countries. We are here today to say enough is enough to the Chinese government, and so with this I would like to ask, today we have here three organizations organizing this protest against the Chinese cultural genocide, crimes against humanity, and Chinese colonialism. Our first speaker, I would like to ask Temseltu, a friend from Southern Mongolia, former teacher in Southern Mongolia, and can tell everything what's happening in this country. We also have Belgi, board member of Tibetan community in the Netherlands, will speak about the situation inside Tibet. Lastly, but very important, Abdul Rahim Gani on the situation in East Turkestan. But before doing that, we would like to sing national anthems of these three countries, at these two countries, and we will start with the Tibetan national anthem.